The Holy Gospel is according to Mark, the 5th chapter. I'm going to invite the congregation to be seated for the Gospel. They came to the other side of the sea, to the country of the Gerasenes. And when Jesus had stepped out of the boat, immediately a man out of the tombs with an unclean spirit met him. He lived among the tombs, and no one could restrain him anymore, even with a chain. For he had often been restrained with shackles and chains, but the chains he wrenched apart, and the shackles he broke in pieces, and no one had the strength to subdue him. Night and day among the tombs and on the mountains, he was always howling and bruising himself with stones. When he saw Jesus from a distance, he ran and bowed down before him, and he shouted at the top of his voice, "What have you to do with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? I adjure you by God, do not torment me." For he had said to him, "Come out of the man, you unclean spirit." Then Jesus asked him, "What is your name?" He replied, "My name is Legion, for we are many." He begged him earnestly not to send them out of the country. Now there on the hillside a great herd of swine was feeding, and the unclean spirits begged him, "Send us into the swine, let us enter them." So he gave them permission, and the unclean spirits came out and entered the swine, and the herd, numbering about 2,000, rushed down the steep bank into the sea and were drowned in the sea. The swineherds ran off and told it in the city and in the country. Then people came to see what it was that had happened. They came to Jesus and saw the demoniac sitting there, clothed and in his right mind, the very man who had had the legion, and they were afraid. Those who had seen what had happened to the demoniac and to the swine reported it. Then they began to beg Jesus to leave their neighborhood. As he was getting into the boat, the man who had been possessed by demons begged him that he might be with him. But Jesus refused and said to him, "Go home to your friends and tell them how much the Lord has done for you and what mercy he has shown you." And he went away and began to proclaim in the Decapolis how much Jesus had done for him, and everyone was amazed. The Gospel of the Lord. When you feel my heat, look into my eyes. It's where my demons hide. It's where my demons hide. Don't get too close. It's dark inside. It's where my demons hide. It's where my demons hide. They say it's what you make. I say it's up to fate. It's woven in my soul. I need to let you go. Your eyes, they shine so bright. I want to save their light. I can't escape this now unless you show me how. When you feel my heat, look into my eyes. It's where my demons hide. It's where my demons hide. Don't get too close. It's dark inside. It's where my demons hide. It's where my demons hide. Imagine Dragons. It's the name of the band, 2013 song, Demons. God is everywhere, even in pop rock music. Who is your Gerasene demoniac? Who or what is the demon, the weird, unfamiliar, scary person or situation or part of you that you are confronting with Jesus? Is it someone who is different from you in some way? Is it a family member or a friend that you thought you knew, but who hasn't been seeming like themselves lately? Is it something inside you? A habit that you can't form or you can't kick? Anger, apathy, depression, anxiety, uncertainty, fear. Fear that you're not working hard enough, that you're not smart enough, that you're not good enough, that you're not enough. I made the choice to check my email between 6:15 last night and 9 o'clock this morning, and I was glad I made that choice this time because I had already received some feedback on this sermon after preaching it last night. And the person who shared their feedback with me told me that the conversations about demons and stuff that's demonic was a difficult one for them because they thought about demons and demonic people as just being completely evil. And so it was hard for them to reconcile the idea of demons with some of the stories I'm going to tell today. And I was so glad that they told me that because reading this text as a person who has lived with a mental illness, that is all I can think about when I read this text. So when you think about demons today, just know that that's informing me today. A demon being something or someone or some situation that is keeping you from really truly feeling God's love, that is separating you from God. Let's talk about Gerasene. It was a different kind of place. It was a non-Jewish, largely non-Israelite region. It was, as the text says, on the other side of the Sea of Galilee. The other side from Nazareth and Capernaum, Jesus' home region. It is here, to the other side, where Jesus goes. Before this story, at the end of Mark 4, he literally says to the disciples, "Let us go to the other side." And then, right before he gets to the region, he takes a nap in the boat, and a storm comes up, and the winds and the waves get crazy, and everybody freaks out, and then he wakes up to calm everybody down. And then they get to Gerasene, and that's what we're in the middle of here. And when Jesus asks the Gerasene man, violently possessed by demons, "What is your name?" and he responds, "I am Legion, for we are many," it is likely that the man is experiencing a demon possession caused by a kind of post-traumatic stress disorder related to the presence of large amounts of Roman troops, Roman legions, as they were called, in the Gerasene region. A violent occupying force that had invaded and disrupted the lives of the people in this region before Jesus got there. Jesus expels, yes, exorcises the demons from this man. And in a scene that should prove to us once and for all that the Bible is most definitely not a boring book, the demons enter a whole herd of local pigs that run themselves off a cliff and into the Sea of Galilee. Some of you may remember that my brother is an assistant film and TV sound editor in New York City. He just started getting his first HBO credits in the last few years. And when he was a kid, he would make movies out of Legos in our basement. And all this week, while I have been living with this story and thinking about this sermon, I just have been wishing that I could ask my brother to film the stop-action Lego version of 1,000 pigs running into the Sea of Galilee off a cliff. He would choose the best music. He would make it amazing. Anyway. This scene with the demon pigs evokes the story also of the Egyptian troops trying to follow the Israelites back in Exodus, but not making it through the Red Sea. Whether you think about these demons as oppressive, destructive, violent systems, or whether you think of them more as entrenched monsters of the spirit, and the negative beliefs that sometimes end up feeling like they are consuming us from the inside, these demons will not overcome God's presence made manifest, God's presence made known on this earth. We are more than demonic systems or the demons that possess us, and Jesus sees this. Jesus sees this, walks right up to this uncomfortable situation, and frees this man from his title as Gerasene demoniac, seeing him as more than his demons, seeing him as a child of God. When I was in the thick of my anxiety in college about 11 years ago, it was a number of my friends and professionals that looked right through that anxiety to me and said, "This is not who you are. This is not who you are. This is something else that you're going to get through." Why on earth were all of these people in the surrounding city and the country so afraid when they saw the guy healed and in his right mind, and they learned that Jesus was there? Isn't this a good thing? At the least, I suppose, the swineherds were probably not very happy with their loss of livestock. But maybe it's also because freedom can be hard to understand. And change, whether you view that change as negative or positive, can be scary either way. For example, those who re-enter the outside world at the completion of prison terms, and those who are veterans, particularly those who have suffered injuries or mental illness as a result of their service, are two groups of people who often have a hard time coming back to what we might think of as a normal life, keeping a steady job, managing finances, and engaging socially. When our walls and defenses and boundaries are removed, or whether we choose to put them down and see each other first as human beings, that is vulnerability. And even when we are able to be intentionally vulnerable, being vulnerable is not easy. Standing in the discomfort takes practice, and it takes courage. Jesus models that courage for us here, standing in the boundary between the demon-possessed man, isolated and cut off, and the rest of the world, and dispelling the forces that keep him apart and out of relationship with that world and with God. Jesus stays in the uncomfortable situation until there is a resolution and freedom for the one who has been tormented. He doesn't fully resolve the discomfort for the people who ask him to leave, but when the man begs Jesus to come and go with him, Jesus empowers this man to be the one to go and tell the good news about what God has done for him and the freedom he now knows from oppression and torture. Go and tell. Action verbs. Our confirmation students know that we've been learning about the four Gospels and how in the Gospel of Mark, Jesus is portrayed as one who is acting, with a special emphasis almost in this Gospel. Go and tell about what mercy, what grace, what new life you have been shown. I have seen people possessed by demons, and I have some stories about this that I would like to share with you today. Today, I feel called to share them with you because I think it is important in this time of yet another transition at Eiphany Lutheran Church that you are aware of the ways that the variety of uncomfortable situations that I have encountered in my professional life have shaped me into the pastor that I am today and the one I hope to continue to become. And I think it's important to note in these stories that I'm never usually alone. I'm never alone because Jesus is always there, but I'm also usually never alone, and God is working through another child of God with me. One day in the fall of 2011, I was at my job as co-director of an after-school program in the community center of an apartment complex for low and middle-income families in Mount Rainier, a Maryland suburb of Washington, D.C. The kids, all of whom were African American or Latino, were outside playing in the playground and parking lot. Out of the corner of my eye, I noticed a man staggering into their play area, clearly high on some kind of drug. A police officer or two followed, yelling, "Get on the ground," and pulling out a weapon. We quickly brought the kids inside. I learned later that the staggering man was the uncle of 4 kids in our program. I remember thinking at the end of that day how thankful I felt that the kids, especially the kids in that family, had had a snack, time to play with safe and healthy adult staff supervision, and a safe place to do their homework and continue to learn. In the summer of 2014, I was a chaplain intern at Mount Sinai Hospital in the medical district on Chicago's west side. I saw many awful effects of modern-day demon possession, of poverty and illness and violence. One night, I accidentally revealed to a family that someone in their family had died, thinking that the doctor had already shared this news with them. He had not. The physical reaction to grief that I witnessed is one that I would have seen and been present for, whether the doctor had shared the news or whether I had. But I was still, of course, devastated at my mistake. But what I remember most about that night, standing in that emergency family waiting room, is a woman in the family who, in the middle of her attempts to comfort the deceased, the immediate relatives of the deceased, looked at me, knowing what I was feeling, and yet somehow in the middle of her shock and grief was able to say, "Thank you. Thank you for being here." In 2016, while I was on my pastoral internship, I was at a weekly evening Bible study with mostly young adults in a restaurant in Fort Worth, Texas, in a busy part of downtown. A man came up to our table asking for money, distressed, not speaking clearly, agitated. Everyone froze, including me. Then slowly I said, "Hi, how are you? Can I walk with you to the door?" And as I walked with and listened to the man, his distress seemed to calm down slightly, and I did the only thing I could really think of to do, which was to point him in the direction of the police station. And about a year or two ago, when I went flying out the door one night to attend to one of our youth who was in the middle of a mental health crisis, I was so glad that Jake Smith, young adult LYO volunteer, was with me as well. The year that I was in Texas, I went on a ladies' retreat and I led devotions with a group of about 50 ladies ranging in age from 30 to 80-something. We were in a small town in East Texas, about 2 hours east of Dallas-Fort Worth. I drove there with Janelle, the youth ministry director at the church where I served, whose unstoppable energy and determination and passion for youth ministry is where I credit the inspiration for mine.